Jai Gurudev, today we explore how the opulent, strategic, and emotionally intense world of Versailles can find grounding and transformation through ancient Indian wisdom. With us are an Art of Living senior faculty member and a Vedic Dhammasasthan officer. Louis XIV centralizes power to control chaos. How do Art of Living and Vedic tools help modern leaders maintain centered power? Centered power outwardly is only sustainable when there is internal stability. Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankarji teaches that when the mind is scattered, leadership falters. Practices like Sudarshan Kriya and Padma Sadhana harmonize our inner energies. Instead of micromanaging people like Louis did at Versailles, leaders today can master themselves when breath is steady. Decisions become clear, calm, and effective. Power begins within. Vedic rituals like Sandhya Vandanam and Upanayanam instill the discipline needed to command responsibly. These daily observances bring the sattvic, pure energy that empowers dharmic or righteous leadership, not just authoritarian rule. Versailles was Louis's monument to eternity. How do Indian practices guide legacy building and build institutions that outlive you? Legacy is about continuity of values, not just buildings. Agnikaram performed daily by Vedic students connects them to the eternal flame of knowledge. When leaders embrace such timeless rituals, they align with dharma that sustains beyond personal life. King Louis built Versailles to outlast him. The Upanam Samskara ensures that spiritual disciplines are passed to future generations. Gurudev says that don't just build empires, build people. Art of Living programs awaken inner leadership when institutions are created from service and clarity. They thrive long after the founder is gone, just like Gurudev's global work today. Versailles teaches that storytelling is strategy. How can spiritual tools help leaders shape narratives? The mind is the original storyteller through Sudarshan Kriya and Sahat Samadhi meditation. One learns to watch thoughts without being controlled by them. This self mastery allows leaders to communicate authentically, not reactively. Gurudev emphasizes that truth or satya in action and words. This truth resonates deeper than spin. In the Recall Sandhya, the seeker reflects on past, present, and future thrice a day. This aligns one's speech with dharma. A leader grounded in truth doesn't need propaganda. His presence alone tells a powerful story. Unlike Lewis's manipulations, truth builds enduring credibility. Versailles is full of spies and secrets. How can leaders avoid paranoia? Excessive surveillance reveals fear. Gurudev teaches that fear arises from disconnection with the self, where through Karam and Gayatri Japa, awareness grows, making intuition sharp. Instead of spying, one begins sensing energies. A rishi doesn't need spies, he reads vibrations. Sudarshan Kriya helps leaders release anxiety when prana or life force flows. Suspicion subsides. You see clearly but without attachment. Gurudev says trust is not blindness, it is the courage to move with wisdom. A leader must trust life while being alert, not paranoid. Louis used rituals to enforce hierarchy. Can rituals serve higher purposes? Absolutely. Vedic ceremonies like Upanayanam and Sandhya Vandanam elevate consciousness. They are not about control but alignment with the cosmic rhythms. When done with the devotion, they awaken inner order which reflects in outer harmony. Versailles used rituals politically in our tradition. Rituals awaken humility and connection with the divine. Gurudev redefines ceremony as celebration. Art of living events like satsangs and yagyas generate joy and oneness, not fear. They bring discipline without dominance. When rituals uplift the spirit, they unify rather than divide. Louis carefully filtered who had access to him. How do spiritual practices help modern leaders protect energy? Gurudev teaches that your energy is precious. Padma sadhana and meditation act like shields, they expand your awareness. So you naturally sense who aligns with your vision. Leaders should be accessible but not vulnerable. Quality over quantity in relationships is vital. Sanyam sadhana or self restraint is a core Vedic virtue. A true seeker doesn't shut doors in arrogance but in discernment. Sandhya Vandanam reminds one daily of the impermanence of life and relationships. This dispassion brings inner clarity like a flame protected from wind. The leader remains luminous without being extinguished by others' chaos. Versailles shows how courtiers manipulate leaders. How can spiritual tools help identify sycophants? Meditation sharpens discrimination. Gurudev reminds us Flattery is a subtle form of theft. Sudarshan Kriya clears emotional fog. So you sense intention behind words. A leader with the inner silence sees beyond masks. Louis struggled with this. His emotions clouded his choices. In the Vedas, the seeker is encouraged to cultivate viveka or discernment through daily japa and agnikaryam. The mind is purified. Flattery fades in the presence of truth. A leader doesn't chase loyalty, he inspires it by walking the path of dharma. The court then becomes a community, not a trap. Versailles portrays diplomacy as theater can spiritual insight, deeper authenticity in negotiation. Absolutely, Gurudev says true communication happens in silence first. When leaders meditate, they access deep empathy. Diplomacy then becomes a dance of understanding, not just manipulation through pranayama and sahat samadhi. One communicates not just to win but to connect. In the Shastras, even divine beings like Krishna use diplomacy but grounded in truth, satyam or truth or ahimsa or non-violence, and asteya or non-stealing form the base of effective negotiation. A leader aligned with these values never loses even when appearing to yield. Louis struggles to trust allies and family. How can practices help leaders cultivate balance and trust? So the Ashwin releases a fear stored in the nervous system. This gives clarity on whom to trust. Gurudev says trust is not blind, it's intelligent faith. Leaders today need that discernment. Padma sadhana builds inner stillness, so decisions about trust becomes effortless. Upanayana and Gayatri Japa nurture Shraddha or sacred trust, trust in the divine, in oneself, and then in others follow. When one lives by dharma, right people are drawn into one's circle. Even betrayal becomes a teaching, not a trauma. Unlike Louis, who held on to mistrust, the wise let truth filter the false. Louis used rewards to secure loyalty. What does Indian wisdom say about recognizing devotion? Recognition is a spiritual quality. Gurudev emphasizes appreciation. It uplifts the giver and receiver in leadership. Publicly honoring sincere work encourages excellence during Art of Living Seva service events. Volunteers are celebrated for their spirit, not just results. This inspires organic loyalty. In ancient Vedic courts, kings honored sages and warriors not just with gifts, but with mantras and sacred rules. Gratitude was spiritualized. In Sanyam Sadhana and Agni Karyam, one learns to offer everything to the divine. A modern leader who rewards selflessly reflects divine qualities, not insecurity. Versailles reveals how envy corrodes relationships. How do spiritual practices dissolve jealousy? Jealousy stems from insecurity and comparison. Gurudev teaches that when the mind is outward focused, it suffers. Sudarshan Kriya clears these mental impressions, allowing contentment to rise. When joy is internalized through regular practice, there is no urge to compare. Instead, admiration replaces envy. Louis was often tormented by jealousy, but meditation would have helped him celebrate others' success without feeling diminished. Gayatri Japa and Trikal Sandhya help the practitioner reflect inward. Vedic Dharma stresses Matsarya Tyaga or renunciation of jealousy. As a step toward divine alignment, the inner fire of Agnikaram purifies such lower tendencies over time. Versailles uses beauty as power. How can one see through external charm? Vedic wisdom tells us Yat Prashyati Tat Nashwati. What is seen perishes. Beauty is temporary unless it is rooted in sattva or purity. Practices like Agnikaram help internalize this awareness. A leader who meditates sees beyond surface glamour. Sandhya Vandanam reminds us to honor the light within all beings, not their appearances. Gurudev teaches that the beauty without depth leads to misery. Shakti Kriya energizes subtle perception, so you are not dazzled but discerning. At Versailles, many fell into ruin chasing charm. A spiritually anchored leader honors inner beauty which never fades. Louis ignored the plight of common people. How can spirituality bridge the gap between rulers and the ruled? Service is central to Gurudev's vision. Seva reconnects leaders with the pulse of humanity. In Art of Living, leaders serve shoulder to shoulder with volunteers, building humility. Sudarshan Kriya removes ego, allowing genuine empathy. When kings ignore the masses, revolutions follow. When they uplift the masses, legacies bloom. Vedic rituals like Agnihotra were traditionally performed for the benefit of all beings. The Rikalsanda includes prayers for Lokakshemam, welfare of the world. Leadership rooted in such compassion becomes unshakable. Versailles might have endured longer if spiritual service had been valued over pomp. Versailles entangles love with strategy. How can true love be differentiated from manipulation? In the Vedas, true love is prema, a selfless flow, not emotional dependency. Practices like Sanyam Sadhana and Sandhya Vandanam Sadhana build this purity. They strip away the ego and possessiveness that masquerade as love. Versailles characters often mistook obsession for love. Vedic love seeks to uplift, not control. Gurudev says when love becomes deep, it becomes devotion. Sudarshan Kriya balances the emotional body, so attachments dissolve and love becomes liberating. Shakti Kriya activates the heart space, opening one to divine love. Then love is not strategy, it's strength. Versailles shows how music, dance, and architecture influence thought. How does Indian wisdom integrate art and spirituality? Gurudev reintroduces art as meditation satsangs or spiritual gatherings with music, create emotional healing and elevate consciousness. In Art of Living, music is not entertainment but transformation. A raga can remove grief, a bhajan can awake devotion. Versailles used art politically, but we use it spiritually. In the Vedic tradition, Natya Shastra states that divine energy flows through dance and drama. Temple architecture itself is a cosmic diagram. Agnikaram and Padma Sadhana prepare the body to become a temple. When art is aligned with dharma, it becomes a divine expression. Louis isolates himself in Versailles. How does spiritual community prevent tyranny? Sangha or spiritual community is a core pillar of Vedic living. Regular practice of Sandhya Vandanam in groups, participation in yagyas and satsang keeps the ego in check. Isolation breeds illusion. Versailles became a cage for the king because he lacked true companionship. Gurudev often reminds us alone you can be miserable, together you can be joyful. Art of Living courses bring people together in shared purpose. Seva and satsang devolve hierarchies through collective chanting and kriya. Leaders stay humble and connected, not arrogant and alone. Versailles intertwines religion and manipulation. How does true faith protect from misuse? True faith arises from experience, not blind belief. Gurudev teaches that practices like Sahat Samadhi and Sudarshan Kriya take you beyond dogma. Then no one can exploit your devotion. You trust the divine but question manipulation. Faith becomes rooted in direct perception. Vedic rituals must be done with bhava or feeling, not just as performance. Agnikaram and Upanayana, when sincerely observed, open spiritual vision. Misusing faith for control, like in Versailles, results in societal decay. True dharma empowers the seeker, not enslaves them. Versailles portrays death as an ever present force. How can Indian practices help us live with that awareness? The Gayatri Mantra itself is a reminder of impermanence and awakening. Sandhya Vandanam performed at dawn and dusk marks the transitions of time, birth, and death every day. Agnikaram purifies the fear of mortality. The Vedas don't deny death, they teach how to transcend it. Gurudev says, awareness of death makes life more alive. Meditation, Sahat Samadhi, and Sanyam Sadhana of level 1 and level 2 sharpen this awareness. Then each moment becomes precious, unlike Versailles, where people fear death. Spiritual seekers see it as a passage, not punishment. Louis built Versailles brick by brick. How can spiritual practice help one build a life of meaning each day? Gurudev emphasizes discipline with joy. Just 20 minutes of Sudarshan Kriya daily transforms stress into creativity. Padmasada energizes every cell. When practice becomes part of daily life, you build your inner peace one conscious breath at a time, one act of seva at a time. Vedic Dharma is not about grand gestures but daily rituals. Sandhya Vandanam at the three Sandhyas or twilights is a daily check in with the divine. Agnikaram lights the fire of focus. Trikal Sandhya aligns the soul with time. These build your eternal Versailles within. Versailles shows how pride isolates and destroys. How do Indian spiritual tools dissolve ego? Ego is like dust on a mirror. Gurudev says that breath clears this dust. Sudarshan Kriya softens the edges of the ego. Satsang and Seva crack the shell further. In the silence of Sehat Samadhi, you meet your true self, not the false self image. Versailles characters clung to pride, spiritual seekers surrender it. In Vedic texts, even gods perform austerities to transcend ego. Sanyam sadhana and Sandhya Vandanam sadhana and Gayatri Japa remind us daily that we are but instruments. Agnikaram begins with surrender. Idam na mama, this is not mine. This humility is the real crown. Versailles portrays the dangers of unchecked freedom. How do spiritual practices balance liberty with discipline? Vedic life respects Swatantrata or freedom with Maryada and boundaries. Sandhya Vandanam and Agnikaram are daily reminders that freedom must align with cosmic rhythm. Upanayanam initiates one into responsible freedom, anchoring youthful energy with spiritual wisdom. Versailles lack this moral compass. Gurudev says the true freedom lies in mastery over the mind. Sudarshan Kriya and Padma Sadhana purify impulse, giving clarity and self restraint. When discipline becomes joyful, chaos disappears. Freedom doesn't mean doing what you feel like, it means being free from restlessness and ignorance. Worthless often equates luxury with power, yet it leads to decay. How does a spiritual lifestyle protect against such downfall? Gurudev reminds us that indulgence without awareness leads to emptiness. Sudarshan Kriya detoxes body and mind while Sahaj fills the inner vacuum with joy. This joy doesn't depend on gold or grand halls, it radiates from within. Versailles shows us that unchecked indulgence causes suffering, not happiness. In Vedic Dharma, even kings were taught tapasya or austerity. Agnikaram and Gayatri Japa instill simplicity and gratitude. Excess without dharma becomes poison. The rishis taught us that the real palace is the awakened soul, not marble domes. Louis ruled through fear. How do Indian traditions encourage leadership through love instead? Where the kings perform yajnas not to assert dominance but to serve Rashtra Dharma. Agnikaram invokes divine blessings not just for self but for Samaj or society. Leadership anchored in Karuna or compassion is enduring. For fear may command silence but only love wants loyalty. Gurudev teaches that love is not a weakness, it's a strength. Sudarshan Kriya clears fear from the nervous system, allowing courage rooted in compassion. Seva, satsang, and collective meditation foster inclusion. Versailles crumbled because love was absent. A spiritual ruler uplifts, not intimidates. Versailles shows endless betrayals. How do spiritual practices cultivate trust in relationships? Gurudev emphasizes Shraddha, trust in life, self, and others. Sudarshan Kriya settles emotional turbulence. Shakti Kriya opens the heart chakra. When inner silence grows, the urge to manipulate or suspect others dissolves. With this inner trust, outer relationships blossom naturally. Vedic practices like Sandhya Vandanam invoke Satyam or truth daily. Agnikaram aligns the individual with the fire of integrity. Trust is not naive, it is clarity born of spiritual strength. Versailles politics destroyed relationships. Vedic wisdom renews them. Louis clings to control. How do the teachings of His Holiness Gurudev Shri Shri Ravi Shankarji guide one beyond this? Gurudev often says, let go and be free. Sudarshan Kriya teaches detachment, not apathy, but inner freedom. When we are not entangled in outcomes, we lead better and live lighter. Attachment breeds anxiety through Sahat Samadhi. The need for control fades, replaced by surrender. In the Upanishads, kings renounced thrones after yagyas and retreated into spiritual life. That was their highest achievement. Agnikaram reminds us daily, Idam namama, this is not mine. The joy of giving up power with grace surpasses the thrill of possessing it. Versailles operates in a constant spying. How does a spiritual practice create inner transparency and clarity? Vedic life fosters self surveillance, not outward policing. Trikal Sandhya invokes a divine witness at all times. The practice of Sandhya Vandanam ensures introspection thrives daily. Agnikaram burns away internal duplicity. When you are transparent with yourself, you have nothing to fear or hide. Gurudev teaches that awareness is the antidote to paranoia. Meditation sharpens perception. Sudarshan Kriya calms the mind and reveals unconscious fears. A spiritually awakened society relies on trust, not spying. Versailles collapsed because fear replaced inner clarity. Versailles clings to noble bloodlines. How does the Indian tradition view this true nobility? Vedic Dharma values guna or virtues and over jati or birth. Upanayam opens the door for anyone to walk the noble path. Even kings were measured by dharma, not lineage. Sandhya Vandanam and Gayatri Japa are open to the sincere, not just the elite. Nobility is earned through the character. Gurudev teaches that your spiritual depth refines your true legacy. Sudarshan Kriya brings humility, not arrogance. Seva makes you noble in action. At Versailles, pride in bloodline led to blindness. In our tradition, it is values, not ancestry, that are truly regal. Versailles is full of rituals without soul. How do you receive and revive meaning in tradition? Rituals must be done with bhakti or devotion and jnana or awareness. Agni Karyam, when performed consciously, becomes communion with the divine. Upanayanam is not a costume change, it's a transformation. The Vedas caution against hollow rites with spirit, even a simple chant becomes divine. Gurudev revived forgotten rituals by infusing them with joy and presence. In Art of Living, pujas are experiences of bliss, not burdens. Padma sadhana connects breath, body, and spirit. Versailles lack this depth. Without spirit, symbols are just theater. Versailles characters are haunted by history. How can one heal the past through spiritual practices? Gurudev often says the past is dust, just shake it off. But first, you must see it. Sudarshan Kriya clears emotional imprints stored in the nervous system. Sahat Samadhi brings deep rest where old trauma dissolves. Once the past is healed, it stops haunting you. Vedic rituals like Agni Karyam are designed to release ancestral burdens. Rikal Sandhya includes prayers for lineage healing. Sandhya Vandanam daily acknowledges time and offers renewal. Worthless pain persisted because it was never purified. Practices cleanse karma, not ignore it. Despite luxury, many at Versailles feel empty. How do Indian teachings fulfill this inner longing? Gurudev reminds us that outer riches can never substitute for inner peace. Even in golden rooms, one may weep. Sudarshan Kriya awakens the soul's joy. Sahat Samadhi connects you to the source. When the soul is nourished, even a hut feels like heaven. The Vedas begin with Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Now begins the inquiry into truth. No matter one's well, this inquiry must arise. Sandhya Vandanam and Gayatri Japa guide the seeker to meaning. Versailles had majesty but lacked meaning through sadhana. We discover what truly matters, Jai Gurudev.